Happy Holy Week. We're so very grateful that you are joining us here today as we continue our last week of our 40-day Mind Fast Soul Feast, our journey with Charles Fillmore in keeping a true Lent. And today is day 35, and it's entitled The New Race. And so we'll have a lovely conversation about that, and embedded in the conversation of Holy Week, which we started during our Sunday service yesterday for Palm Sunday. So with that, I just invite us to turn within individually right where we're at. And whatever illustration has resonated with you, as we allow the body eyes to close, the turning away, if you will, from the old or from the mesmerism of the thought form of the ego or a separate mind, and that as we turn and deny the power of a world made really in madness and in separation, we turn within and affirm the God is, the kingdom, queendom of heaven here. And we may love the illustration where on this journey we enter into the garden of our consciousness. Some may prefer that we are climbing a mountain top and summiting a mountaintop. We've had a couple of different illustrations of what this is, and whatever resonates with you, follow that now. Today I'm going to use the garden. So I walk into that garden in this moment as I turn my attention and awareness to the I am of my being, the Christ of my being. And in that garden, I am one with God, with all that is. And it is here that I return home. The journey without distance to the destination that has never changed is accomplished in this holy instant. As I affirm the one power, the one presence, the one light, the creator of all that is, seen and unseen, in between and beyond, is the only reality of my experience, the only reality, period. That everything outside of this is but a dream. And that as I have entered the garden of my consciousness, I have chosen to place upon the altar the dream, all the thoughts and the ideas that I made up. And I place upon the altar even my best ideas. I place upon the altar my personality and the body. And that all the ways that I have identified, and all the places and ways that a mind separate in fear has made a home in my heart. And I just place that all upon the altar where it is transfigured, transmuted, altered by the glory of God, by the power and the presence of the only reality and truth, that there is only God, only love. And it is in this love that I rest as I breathe in and out, symbolizing that I am in the divine flow of the elixir of my life, joined in the beloved of my being, in love as love, accepting and allowing the love of God to breathe me, to revitalize my entire being, and to fill me with the light, the understanding, the wisdom of this all that is. That its only desire is that I am home in love. I abide here now. And how good and glorious it is to abide in this consciousness, to live, move, and have my being in and as it, to assume the identity of the I am. To assume the identity of Christ, the divine idea in the mind of God. I am, we are. And we rise in this wholeness. That as we focus upon this and identify with it, we become it. It is here that I know who I am as spirit, unlimited and free. It is here that I know what I am as Christ, as the Word, the Logos of God, that which God created in wholeness and innocence. Given the kingdom, queendom of heaven, and I know how I serve as the emissary of this light and truth. I listen for the voice for God. I have learned to undo error, to omit and deny the lacks of love. And I allow the Christ of my being to direct my doing. This time is blessed. We are a blessing. I let this be. Amen. I linger for the holy tryst with Spirit just for that moment. A parentheses in eternity. I adjust in my seat, my posture, and I am poised. Poised in peace. I have entered the habitation of the Most High. And it is this peace that I extend and give to my brothers and to my sisters this day, not of this world, but the peace of God I extend to each and every one of us. Thank you again for joining And today is a new day. Today is our Holy Week walk. And as we started to discuss yesterday, which was Palm Sunday, that our entire journey is symbolized in this week, this Holy Week, and that we begin and end with celebration. And so we walk forth this day in celebration mindedness, that we acknowledge and look for the evidence of that which we have claimed, that which we have affirmed as being the truth of our lives, that, this power, this presence, this God is all that there is, and that we walk forth with that reverent air that everything is holy now. And that's what we do. Holiness meaning wholeness, all already given. Walking forth, remembering and placing upon ourselves that mantle, the consciousness of the Christ, and walking forth as Christ. And some might say, oh, well, that's too much, or I can't do that. And so what I just say to that is, yes, we can, because that is our nature. That's how we were created. That's how we are created. And that those little blips that come along the way, remember, we don't judge ourselves. The little crucifixions, those that seem small, those that are big, there is no big or small in God. And so that which appears as a little snag, that we place it upon the altar, and that we don't walk forth and through it alone, that we join in this consciousness and we place it and we invite Spirit, Holy and Divine, the voice for God, to inform us. Okay, where am I perceiving a lack of love? Where am I imagining the absence of what I have affirmed as being true? And in that, then we get the little golden nugget of the opportunity to heal that misperception. And a miracle we offer it as a Christ-directed miracle, where that shift in consciousness can occur. And then that which we thought was going to take us under, that which seemed like a tombstone that was going to confine us and imprison us, becomes our stepping stone to the freedom, to the rising in consciousness. It is all embedded in this week. And as we focus on that, this idea of a new race comes forward. And I struggle sometimes with some of the verbiage here, and that's okay, because as I sat with it this morning and continued to read it, I knew what Charles was talking about, and that some of our language today may not, we might associate it with some of the language of today, some of the separation language that goes on about race, and the idea of a new race can touch upon the superiority or the separation of some individuals that rally around some of these verbiages. But what we're talking about here is really the awakening to the identity that has already been established, and it is for all, and nobody is outside of it. And so this is the Christ of our being. And so let's see. I want to start with the reading that I read yesterday, or that I had read yesterday in our Sunday service, which is our Palm Sunday service. And I want to begin here because I think it gives us the call for this Holy Week, and really what our whole journey has been about. And it's from A Course of Love, and it says that Mari Perron is the individual called the first receiver who received this. And A Course of Love is the voice of Jesus coming through, and would be considered a continuation of A Course in Miracles. And this is what it says. This was read yesterday at the service. The covenant of the new. So this correlates for me with Charles Fillmore's The New Race. The covenant of the new is simply our agreement to proceed together on the palm-strewn path of Christ consciousness. It is a path upon which joy triumphs over sorrow and victory triumphs over defeat. All that is required is the acceptance of the new and the denial of the old that will allow for the sustainability of the Christ consciousness and form. And so this is what we've been talking about the whole time: the denial of the old, the denial of a thought system separate from God, and the acceptance of the new, of the thought system of love, of the Christ consciousness. Now, I could easily say it's returning to our aboriginal nature. So is it really new? Well, it's new in how we have been operating as a humanity, let's say, that the human has not given way in our expression globally of our culture to this Christ consciousness. And so she goes on, or Jesus goes on, "My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, this is the call you have heard for as long as you can remember, the call you have heard as often as you have grown still and listened. It is the one beautiful note, the tolling of the bell of the Lord, the telling of the bell of the Lord, the I am of our being, and it is your invitation to return home. This call has always sounded. It is not a death knell, but a call to life." So this week, we focus on life. Let us not be led into the temptation, in the mesmerization of a Jesus that is slain and that is suffering, and the misperception of our focus upon that and all that it has meant about us as being, sinners, and all that it has meant about blood and suffering and tears. No, let us not be tempted to fixate there, and to fixate instead upon the life that is being called forth, the life that is eternal, that yes, something of the old must die so that something new may come forth. But just as we don't weep for the caterpillar, for we know that the caterpillar is destined for the butterfly, so too are we destined for this Christed nature to prevail and triumph in our lives. So it is not the past or the future, but the eternal now. It is within us as we speak, the tone and timbre of the dialogue. It calls us and asks us to invest our life with the very purpose you have always desired. You are not purposeless now. We are not purposeless now. Our life is not meaningless. We are the ushers, the pioneers of the new. And our work, as will often be repeated, is to accept the new and deny or refuse to accept the old. So, metaphysically stated, our past is not our precedence. Certainly we may look at it and learn from it, but it is not the power or the precedence of our now. When we choose to let it go and we choose the new, only in this way will the new triumph over the old. And so pause and take a breath with me here. Allow me to sip my tea for a moment. So I juxtapose this reading with the reading offered by Fillmore in the Keep a True Lent, day 35. And it begins with a quote. He doesn't really indicate where exactly it is from. "These things shall be a loftier race than ever the world has known, shall rise with flame of freedom in their souls and light of knowledge in their eyes. Nation with nation, land with land, unarmed shall live as comrades free. In every heart and brain shall throb the pulse of one fraternity, of unity, I love this visual of the borderless, the false borders that we've laid upon the earth as representing how we separate in consciousness from one another. And yes, we acknowledge the diversity and the multiplicity of the mind of God expressing as the individuations and different experiences. But we now recognize we live as if we really, really believe in this unity and no separation. And it begins in our consciousness. And so he goes on and he says the time is ripe for the advent of a new race. The advent of the spiritualized being, he says spiritualized man, the spiritualized being, the human and the divine. This will be brought about not by a miracle or the fiat of God, but by the gradual refinement of the man, of the flesh, of the man of spirit, the human, the sense, the Adam consciousness, if you will, giving way to the Christ consciousness. The true overcomer is qualifying themselves to become a member of the super race. It is well for such a one to cultivate, I love this, it's well for us to cultivate a childlike spirit and let go of all tense striving. That we can let go of tense striving. We can even, as we talked recently, let go of being a seeker and agree to be found. Let's agree to be found now. So we can let go of the tense striving, even for spiritual things. In the realization of protecting, providing love, all the strain of fear and anxiety will be removed, and life in abundance will then find easy entrance into the consciousness, bringing strength and health and eternal youth in life. So he talks about some promises there. But when we align, as we align, then we allow. We've heard, I need do nothing. Of my own self, I do nothing. It is the Spirit that does this through me. It's the way it works. Our only job is to align in this consciousness, is to listen for that voice of God, learn to undo the error thinking in our mind, and then do as we allow the flow, as we allow ourselves to be guided. It says spiritual harmony in us depends largely on the right relation of the inner and the outer realms of our consciousness. Expression is the law of life. Whatever is expressed becomes manifest. So it is done not only as I believe and what my conviction is, but that power of the word, the logos, that creates in, through, and as me as I express that power that comes forth through that power center. I realize that as an overcomer, I am working also for the whole, establishing a new race consciousness, a new heaven and a new earth. So sometimes, we can get really whipped up in the idea of a new earth, we're the ones we're waiting for and all of that. And that is so wonderful to be in our tribe, to be in our vibratory neighborhood, if you will, or those who have caught this vision. The great crusade that I had mentioned being a part of, that, there's something passionate, something calling us forth for that. And I love the energy of it. And yet what I know and what I'm hearing here is that my role is within my own consciousness, and so is yours. And so we always begin within. We always return to that garden. We always, rise to the mountaintop consciousness, that elevated consciousness. We partake there and we allow that then. When we come down from the mountain, We may stay in that elevated consciousness, but we bring the body down, and we are practicing here being in the world, but not of it. Whereas before we have been of it. I encourage those who are studying this material, who are really partaking of it, to read the associated material. It's a full chapter that they're referencing here as accompanying this reading in Keep a True Lent. And it's the chapter called Man, chapter 8. It is really a wonderful story about what we might call the fall, and it's all in consciousness, and how we are created with this full potentiality of the Christ within us, but how we forgot, and the journey back. It's a lot of material. It's not a lot of material, and it's actually what we cover all the time about the rising in consciousness and how we are and become that which we identify with. So our rising in consciousness comes from, the outer. We've done the outer identification. We thought that we were body. We thought that we were flesh. We thought that we were form. We thought that we were immersed in condition, and that was our power. And that's what we get. And that's a victim level consciousness of operating. And then we identify with the intellect and the power of the mind and the choice that we have, and we rise in consciousness. But there's more than that. We rise in consciousness when we understand we have dominion over our thoughts and our thinking. And yes, our life begins to change, but we're still operating in the yay-nay consciousness. There's still that duality. We're still, choosing. And then there comes a rising even more in consciousness where we identify as Christ. And in that consciousness, identifying as the I am as God created me, we become in flow. The nays drop away. And we live in yay. We're living in the affirmative. And we live, move, and have our being there. And as we process through that this week, where we're continuously offering the lilies of peace rather than the crown of thorns, the lilies of peace of this I am Christ consciousness rather than the separated consciousness of fear, and represented by the crown of thorns. This week we give forth peace. We connect with this I am, and we walk forth with this reverent air. We explore this, we celebrate this, and we watch as the reflective universe sends back the messengers of peace, of love. And a new the race consciousness leaves us. The race consciousness being that consciousness that we just made up of a mind separate, all of its laws, all of its, that we can let that go. And in our childlike nature, we can release the tension because we're identifying with our true nature as Christ. We abide in peace. We give forth the gifts of peace and love. And we walk forth wholly with this reverent air, not in superiority, but in true humility, because we are being as God created us, not as we made up. This is a glorious time, and a new heaven and a new earth shall come to pass as we rise in this consciousness and let it have full sway with our lives this week, this day. I love you. Thank you for listening. May you go forth and multiply peace and love this day.